right, what is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. I seriously appreciate you tuning in today. We are back here with the 2006 Nissan 350z. We just got this thing washed. As you can tell, it is a little wet right now, but had to do a little walk around in the shade. This thing just looks so cool. I honestly love the way this Nismo V1 spoiler looks, especially when you come down the back. I love how it follows the lines of the car so perfectly. Ever since we got this thing all repainted and everything, and we got this part fixed, like, it's just so nice to have this thing pretty much complete. I would say it's 99%. There's still some things we need to do, but even in this state right now, if you would have told me that this Z would have looked like this when I picked it up, I don't know if I would have believed you. 3.5 years ago when I picked up this car, the clear coat was peeling everywhere. The doors were different colors of red. There was a whole bunch of different colored panels. Some were more bright red, some were more like kind of purple. So it is so amazing to have this thing all one color now. Before, we had the black front lip and we actually painted it red to match the rest of the car, and I think it looks great. I feel like this lip complements the front of the car so well, the way it kind of comes up in the front right there. I just think it looks so good. Okay, so I figured while we're parked here inside this garage type of thing, let's get an exhaust clip. I have not revved this thing on camera in like a few months actually. So let me know what you guys think. This is a muffler delete on a 2006 Nissan 350z. Everything else is completely stock. All right. For a muffler delete, literally just removing the muffler, it sounds really good and it's super cheap. I think I paid $185 from the take the muffler off and put the stock tips back on, and here we are. Check it out. That's what it looks like under there. Everything else is stock though. Stock resonators, stock catalytic converters. Honestly, if you start taking that stuff off, it won't pass smog anymore. And then personally, I think without a resonator, the 350z sounds so raspy. All right, let's get it. We're out of here. So as you saw from the title of today's video, we're gonna be talking about 350zs and oil. 350zs and oil kind of go hand in hand like peanut butter and jelly in my opinion. Let's get some of this water off the windshield here. Let's drop it into second. The speed bump. Oh my gosh, light speed! It's tripping. Doesn't that look so cool? I might just be crazy, but I think that looks so cool. So Nissan 350zs and oil. Let's see, what was the first thing I wanted to talk about? So let's start with like why oil is really important. So oil does like a few main things inside the engine that a lot of people might not realize. One of the main reasons why your car doesn't overheat is because of the oil that is circulating through the engine. So besides coolant and the water pump and everything, oil is gonna be one of the main reasons that your engine stays cool. Oh, let's make this green light. Oh, please. I'm just gonna go. I guess it could be up for debate, but I would say we made that. Another really important thing that oil changes do is they remove a lot of the particles and sludge and just a lot of the dirt that builds up inside the oil over time. And especially 350zs have oil burning issues and stuff to where the oil is gonna get a lot darker a little quicker. So, and oil will also break down over time and leave that sludge. So a proper oil change will remove a lot of that sludge and buildup. Also, really dirty oil, and if you do need an oil change pretty badly, you'll notice your gas mileage will actually go down. And what happens is a lot of the stuff inside your engine isn't lubricated properly, so it's having to work a little bit harder to do what it would normally do, so your gas mileage might dip a little bit. I'm gonna turn here. I don't think this is the right turn, but I'm doing it. Can we make that green light? Yes. This is a game of always trying to make the green lights. Last but not least, a super important reason why you want to keep up on your oil changes and also topping off your oil from time to time is going to be your oil pressure. So for your oil pressure to sit at the right level, you're going to need the right amount of oil inside your car. And of course, like I said, 350zs burn oil pretty consistently. So if you're not topping off your oil, or at least checking it pretty occasionally, your oil pressure might be like slipping downwards and you might not notice it. Having low oil pressure isn't necessarily terrible. It's when it drops like drastically is when it's really bad, and that can be from a lot of different things that happen. But even if you're just a little low on oil, your oil pressure might not be where it should be, and that can cause some issues. You probably won't notice too much of an issue while you're driving every day, but over time, the oil pump is probably gonna have a little bit harder time pushing oil like into the top of the motor, and then you might find more wear there. So So keep your oil topped up. One thing I do notice is that even when my oil is down just a little bit and I need to add like a quarter of a quart, my oil pressure really goes down quite a bit, and I can see it mostly at idle. You don't really notice it when you're driving, but at idle, I do notice my oil pressure seems to drop, and then once I top it back up again, it seems to be okay. So just keep topping up and then keep an eye on your oil pressure and you should be okay. So those are a few main reasons why keeping up on your oil changes and topping off are gonna be super important. But another important question is gonna be, what type of oil should I use? Honestly, there's so many different types. Every time you go to like O'Reilly Auto Parts or AutoZone, there are seriously like 20 different types of oil. And I'm not just talking about brands, like also weight as well, because oil comes in all different types of thicknesses. Honestly, in the 350Z, I've had fairly good luck putting 5W30 every time. And I also notice it feels faster on 5W30. In the summertime, once it warms up and the temperature gets a little hotter outside, I like to raise the weight of the second number, so it's 5W40. And basically what this is doing is 5W is the weight or the thickness that the oil is gonna be when the car is cold. So when you go out to the car in the morning and you check the oil, that oil is 5W. That's what it should be sitting at. And then if you get 10W, it should be a little thicker. So the higher the number, the thicker the oil sits. The second number, so like 30 or like 10W40, is going to be your hot weight. So when you've been driving the car for a while, how much does the oil thin out as the temperature increases? Because we all know when you heat something up, it gets less and less thick. Usually when the hotter a liquid is, the more fluid it's going to be. That wouldn't work in an engine very well because they get pretty hot. So oil needs to be a certain thickness, even at its maximum running temperature. So what I do is I run 5W30 for most of the year, and then for about 3 months of the year, from actually right now, from June to about September, like the really hot months of the year where pretty much every day is going to be over 93 degrees. I'll actually change it to 5W40. 5W40 is a little harder to find. You can't really just find it at O'Reilly, but I usually just order it online. Having it at 5W40, that 40 being an increased weight, I honestly notice it really helps the oil pressure when I'm sitting at idle when it's really hot outside. Because before, when I was running 5W30 and it was like 100 degrees outside, I was noticing my oil pressure was sitting really, really low. So I raised the weight a little bit and I noticed it helped it quite a bit. So just something to think about. And then as far as oil brands go, Castrol is going to be a great brand. Royal Purple's good. Honestly, my experience, I ran Mobil 1 for a long time. For some odd reason, I realized that the Mobil 1 5W30 burns way faster than like Valvoline does, right? I've been running Valvoline for the past like year and a half now, and I noticed that it just doesn't burn the oil as fast. So I don't know if it's because it's thicker, it's having harder time like slipping through the piston rings, but nonetheless, I have noticed actually quite a big difference by changing to Valvoline from Mobil 1. It's something about that Mobil 1 formula that just likes to burn away. I don't know what it is, but... Okay, so we've talked about why oil changes and topping off your oil is super important. We've talked about what types of oil you should be running, 5W30 or 5W40 in my opinion, depending on the climate. And then third, last thing we're gonna be talking about is how often should you be changing your oil? Because these cars, like I said earlier, they burn really hot, so the oil gets really black pretty fast. So if you're constantly topping off your oil, how often should you really change it? Because it can't be getting that dirty if you're constantly adding brand new oil, right? And honestly, this is true, especially if you're running synthetic. I highly recommend running synthetic. I ran regular a long time ago, and even the guy behind the register at O'Reilly Auto Parts told me that there's no difference really between running regular and synthetic. He's kind of right. Like, oil is oil. As long as there's oil in the car and it's the correct weight, like 5W30 or 5W40, it's gonna run completely fine. One of the benefits about synthetic oil though is you can run it a little bit longer than regular oil. So while most people get 3 months or 3,000 miles out of an oil change, if you're running synthetic, you could probably boost that to like 5,000 or 5 months. Like I said earlier though, the 350Z runs pretty hot and the oil can get pretty black fairly quickly. So even while you're topping off the oil and you're checking it, you'll notice that the dipstick is pretty black, even though you just added like half a quart of 5W30 to it. But so personally, I probably change the oil between the 3,000 and 5,000 mile mark. One thing I would recommend if you're tracking your car or you're just driving really hard all the time, highly recommend doing the 3,000 mile change, because you can never have too clean of oil. Like, your car will not be mad for changing the oil. It can get kind of expensive occasionally, but honestly, you can find a quart of 5W30 at Walmart for like 25 bucks. I highly recommend changing the oil pretty often if you're going to the track. Maybe even every track day. Like, if you're spending like hours out there on the track, I would probably change it after the track day, just because you don't want that oil in your car for, you know, however long, weeks or even months, until you're at the next track day, until you change it again. And you're probably going to change it before the next track day, so you might as well just change it. It might sound kind of expensive to constantly be changing your oil like that, but I promise you, changing your oil is way cheaper than a new engine. If you're running really dirty oil and it just cannot lubricate the motor like it wants to, you're gonna have metal on metal in there, and that just never lasts. last long. So, and I know oil has been going up in price lately. I think it's like $9 a quart here in California, you know, and of course, just like gasoline, it's one of those things you just have to buy. It's almost a hybrid. Like people say 350Z runs on 91, like no, it's a hybrid, okay? This thing runs on 91 and 5W30. It's like a flex fuel thing. If you're changing your oil, change your oil filter at the same time. It's literally right next door to the oil drain plug, so those filters can get clogged because, I mean, they're filtering things, so they're filtering dirt, debris, metallic pieces, all that stuff is getting caught inside the filter. So, and it can be easy to think like, oh, I add a quarter a month topping off the oil. Every 3 months, that's 3 quarts of oil new. That's more than half the oil is new. I mean, realistically, yes, like that is true, but the oil filter can still clog with all that debris, and having a clogged oil filter can lead to bad gas mileage, low oil pressure because the oil pump just can't pull the oil through because it's clogged. Another thing would be like if it's blowing smoke out the back, kind of like a bluish gray smoke. Those would be pretty extreme cases of a clogged oil filter, but if you left the same oil filter in there for probably a year, you'd be experiencing all of that. So definitely change your oil filter. Here's the number. I use K&N. It's HP1008. Works every time. It works amazing. If you can help it, please go for the more expensive oil filter, because if you look inside, the expensive oil filters have like an actual metal filter in there that is actually doing stuff, and then the cheaper filters that you can get for like $8, they have like a piece of cardboard, and that cardboard in there is supposed to be used as the filter. So look inside the oil filter when you get it, or do a quick Google search and make sure you get the oil filter that does not have a piece of cardboard in there. It's probably not cardboard, but it looks like cardboard. It's some filtering material. And for 20 bucks, I mean, we're talking about the engine of the car. Like you gotta ball out and just get the $20 one. All right, so I hope you learned something in this video. I probably just talked your ear off for the last 10 minutes, but hey, it is all important information, and I'd rather you know this information than not know this information and have to experience like overheating, or you need an entire new engine because your oil pressure wasn't up to spec because of the oil filter or something simple like that. I always felt if a car was a human, gasoline would be the food it eats to keep going every day, and oil would be the blood it circulates through itself to keep it moving. That's just one way I always thought of the importance of oil in a car. So, all right, let's get it. Acceleration. Oh, it's bumpy. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Hit the thumbs up button if you did. Hit the subscribe if you haven't yet already. I seriously post videos like this all the time. So if you enjoyed this one, join the family. Thank you so much for joining us. Peace out.